everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Tara. I am the co-founder of a company called One Thing Simpler. And over the next 45 minutes, I'm going to teach you something that I wish every business knew how to do. Most businesses feel that they're leaking money and time, and they just don't know how to pinpoint it. So by the end of today, I'm going to give you a very clear system that you could figure out where those leaks are and how to fix it. We do have time for questions at the end. So like I said, you can either ask the questions at the end, or if you want to just pop them in the question and answer section, feel free to pop them in. Okay, let's start with a few things that probably happened in your business this week. Basically, someone probably spent a few extra minutes writing an invoice, sending a reminder for someone to do something or to send something. A lead form was filled out, but they weren't automatically followed up with. All of these things are small little things that probably take a couple minutes here and there. And it doesn't feel like a big problem, but that's exactly why they're dangerous, because they don't show up on any report. It's no one's job to usually notice these things, but this is where every company is leaking money. And by following the system, you're going to be able to stop these leaks. And this is what we call the manual task. It basically costs you the work that your tool should really be doing for you. And these are things that you're doing by hand. So there's 3 different ways that we feel this manual tax. The first is in our time, because it's something that a tool should be doing for us, but we're actually doing it. The second is in cash flow, because it probably does affect cash flow in some way or another. And the third is opportunities, because if you're busy doing something else, then you're probably missing out on another opportunity where you may have, a greater opportunity to either make more money or to get another client or anything like that. So these are the 3 different ways that you can see what this manual tax is that's affecting your company. So just as way of introduction, I want to introduce myself. My name is Tara. I am the co-founder of a company called One Thing Simpler. And I just want to give you a little context and a little bit about me. For the last number of years, I've been running a company called Simple Day, and we are basically Monday.com Platinum partners. And we've been helping people build out different Monday implementations, custom integrations, and over time, I've noticed that, my clients really need more help, because they're not only using Monday, they're using other tools. And that's where this idea of One Thing Simpler started. I actually partnered with someone named Daniel, and he's someone that has been a CTO for a number of companies. He's been a software developer for the last 15 years, and he actually had an exit of one of his products. He mainly worked in the grocery space, but essentially he's a developer, and he's been working with AI for about the last 2 years. And we partnered together because we really felt and saw a need to help our companies go above and beyond Monday. They didn't need to simply, know how this works on, this works within Monday. And yes, that's important. But there was this need to see, how can we integrate AI? How can we get them to start using AI? And, obviously, if you read the news or LinkedIn, you feel like it's like a fast speeding train in terms of what everyone's doing. But in reality, I don't think companies are really up to what's actually going on that quickly. And I think companies need to learn how they can implement AI, and, they need help building out AI agents, building out workflows. And that's a little bit of what we do. So we actually focus on 3 specific areas. The first thing that we focus on is tools and AI audit, because a lot of companies come to us and they're like, we're using a lot of these different tools, but they don't talk to each other. They don't connect. So usually the best place to start is with an audit. After that, most of our clients go in one of 2 directions. We either build out custom apps, custom workflows for something specific that they need. And I'm going to talk about some of them later on in today's session. Or we've been helping companies build out their AI team. Essentially, right now, people are trying to build out as many AI agents as they can and implement and integrate AI as much as they can. And that's what we've been doing. We've been helping them build out this AI team. Okay, so let's start with the system. And this is what I hope you gain from this webinar, is this repeatable system that you can do later. So that way, when you're evaluating what can you use to prevent this manual task, you'll use this system. I want it to be a system, not a scary number. And it's a 4-step method. So the first step is to map everything. And that, an easier way to say it is we just need to be able to see everything. The second step is to mark it. We want to find the specific pain. The third is to match it, because we need to match it to the different options. In today's world, there's not one way to do something. There's 500 ways to do something. There's a lot of different AI tools, a lot of different probably AI automations within the tools that you're already using, and probably a lot of different ways to get to the same results. But you need to decide what that fix is. And the fourth thing is build, because you actually need to build it. And this is a process that we do internally. I'm constantly going through this process over and over again for everything that I want to build out using AI. And we're going to go into details about each of these different steps. The first step is to map it. And that's actually that you need to see everything going on. It seems rather simple, but a lot of times you have these ideas in your head or you think this is the workflow, you're not 100% sure. So what you need to do is you need to actually map your process. Start with one process. Don't look at everything. Don't think about, okay, we have to fix every single thing in our company. Start with one process and start to map it out. You can choose things like maybe like closing your leads, or from quotes to actually getting paid or onboarding. But start with one process. And in the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of how you can map this out. Once you think about your process, then you need to draw the real path. Like, what's the exact step of every single thing that happens? It doesn't help you if you skip steps or you forget parts of it. You need to write every single part of it. And the last piece of this is that you need to name the tools that do this, because a lot of times businesses are not straightforward that they use one tool and that's it. There's no one tool that solves every single problem, unfortunately. So each step in a process could have different tools that you're using. And this is a lot of the areas where the gap is because these tools don't talk to each other. So it's important to think about these three separate things. And now I'm going to show you an example of a map. So here's a pretty straightforward map. Basically, we're talking about a onboarding process to get a new client and then till you get to sending them an invoice. And you can see here that it starts with a web form, and then you go wherever your web form is in your website. The information goes into your CRM. Then you have some kind of email reply, you book a call, then you send them a quote, and then you send an invoice. Now, these are different stages. I try to leave this pretty general because I know every business runs a little bit differently, but it doesn't really matter how your business is done. The important part is that you're writing down all of these parts. You're mapping this out. But the most important piece to look at is actually the pink dots on this slide, because the pink dots on this slide is where there's handoff. So you have a web form that hands off to your CRM, and then you have to send an email reply. Now, some of these are within the same system, but most of them probably are not. And that's something that's really critical to look at to see what's in the same system, what's not. And again, map out these different processes. Now, once you've written this out, and again, you could do this in a tool like Claude, you could do it in a Miro, or you could just write it on paper, honestly. Once you do that, the next thing that you need to do is you need to circle the gaps. You need to look at your company. Where are the specific gaps in your company? Is it something that's moved by hand, meaning someone needs to manually do something in order to go to the next step? Like a lead comes in and you need to manually send out an email. Or maybe it's something that's a repeated decision, something that you're constantly doing over and over that doesn't necessarily need to be repeated because you're doing the same thing every single time. And sometimes it's things that wait. So work is actually not being done because you're waiting on something specific. So look at these three different things when you're analyzing this map. And here I'm going to show you an example of a map that I actually did. And here you can see the different handoffs. Here, the orange is something that's moved by hand. So from a web form into the CRM, that's something we know that definitely can be automated. Here's something, this green, there's some kind of weight in there. Here, this is a repetitive process. And here, is also a reminder. So it's really important to look at these three different things. Is it something by hand? Is it a repeatable process? Or is it just something that's waiting because someone hasn't done an action? And actually find the gaps. Once you find the gaps or mark the gaps, then you're going to be able to fix it. But you can't fix it if you don't know what you're working on. Now, I want to talk about something very specific because I think this is such an important topic that people don't realize. And this goes back to the example that I just showed you about, basically it started with a lead being submitted. And just to show you where this manual tax is and why it's so important. So the statistics are that 78% of people will purchase from the person who responds right away, like the first responder, sorry. Also say that 21% are more likely to qualify if you reply in the first 5 minutes versus 30 minutes. That's crazy. Like 5 minutes versus 30 minutes is a huge difference. And this to me was the biggest shocker, that on average, it takes a business 47 hours to respond. Okay. We're not even talking about a few minutes. We're talking about 47 hours. So that's really a long time. Now, just to put this as an example, I want to share with you an example that I think will really clearly explain this. So imagine a painting company that spends $5,000 a month on ads. Okay. They get 100 leads. We're doing this just to make the math really easy. Okay. And they close 12 clients a month. Now, imagine if they can increase from 12% close rate to 25% close rate simply by this one automation, by shortening the speed to lead time. Think about having 13 more clients, okay, in your month without adding any more ads, without having to do any extra work because it's automation. But that's just one example of how you can add in this automation and you don't even realize it's not something that we count, but that's what this manual tax is. This speed to lead. How quickly can you automate your response to your leads? Again, this is just one example, but in this example, I think it's so clear. Like, you're not adding more money to your ads. You're spending the same amount. You're just increasing your conversion rate by automatically replying to someone. Okay. And here are some statistics about how companies get to this manual tax of $85,000 a year. But it's the same idea that, you have conversion rates, someone's automating an invoice sending out, you're having different tools that don't talk to each other. So you need to manually enter in information a number of times. I recently spoke to someone in construction and she said they're basically working in a project management tool and they're working in Excel because different people on the team are using different tools. And every single time they would change something in their project management tool, they would have to change it in Excel. Like, think of how much time that person is spending just simply copying over information. That's time when they can be spending it doing something else. Now, the third step is match, and you need to decide what the fix is. So once you already have your map, you know what you need to do, you marked where the pain points are and where the issues are that you can potentially tackle. The next is to figure out how to fix it. Now, this is a little bit confusing because in today's world, and I said this already, there's so many different ways to fix these problems. It used to be that you had more limited options. Like, you had to either work within your tool that you're using, or maybe you would work in something like a Make or a Zapier, which are tools that connect different tools. But in today's world, I find that you have a lot of different options. And I was, debating how to present this because on the one hand, you have the doing. It's a very simple thing. Change a status in your project management tool, automate an email, something that's repetitive one time, like there's no thinking behind it. And the truth is that you can use tools like Zapier or Make or all these other tools, but you also can use AI tools to do this. Like, for example, I use Claude Cowork for everything now. I'm like totally converted to Claude Cowork, and I have it make a change in my Monday board when something happens. So that's like a very straightforward, just doing something. And that's like a more basic way to either use some of these tools or to use a tool like Claude. But then you have the deciding where you may need a tool that can help you reason what's the best way to do it. It needs some thinking behind it. It needs some context behind it. And this is a really important piece. I think that AI is not there yet. And I know, everyone talks about this a lot, but like, there still needs to be this human piece, this human overseeing it. I don't think that AI can do everything and solve everything, but I do think that there's two levels of how you can use these tools. You can have simple automations, just the doing, like, okay, let's just do this. Like I said, just change a status, just do an automation, something quick. But then you can also have the AI reasoning that AI can actually do something for you more than just, I want to say without thinking, but it's like hard to say that because the AI is actually thinking, but it's only thinking based on the context that you give it. So let me give you a great example for the deciding with the AI. So one of the things that I have is I have different kinds of emails that go out to potential clients. And there's a whole email workflow, which we're actually going to get into, and I will talk about it. But one of the things that I include in my emails is I have a link either to a case study or to a YouTube video. So I'll say, like, hey, you're a construction company and you need help with something. Let me share with you a use case that of something that we've done. So, like, we're showing value. Like, look, I did this, I have experience. So I think that's something very powerful to put into my emails. So what I do is I actually have the AI understands the context of the email, and then it goes to my website and my YouTube channel and chooses the most relevant content. Now, obviously needs the instructions, but I'm using AI on a much higher level. It's not simple, do this, do this, do that. It's actually thinking like, okay, what was this call about? Let's think about it. Now let's find the best match option. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to plan this in terms of like what tool you're using and how you can do it. But I think you really need to sit and think about, is it straight automation or is it something that we need AI to actually do for us more than a simple level? And obviously, one thing to always keep in mind is that you don't want 100 different tools and everyone's using a lot of different tools already. So I would try and stick to the tools that you're already using. Like, it's true, there are sometimes I'm thinking, should I use Monday automation or maybe I can just have Claude do it at the same time because I'm already building this whole skill within Claude. So, sometimes you have to decide because different tools can do the same thing. But I would try and limit it so you don't have 100 different tools, but really to keep it more focused. So I want to share with you an example. And this is something that I built for myself. And this is something that I think every business owner struggles with, or every business, I should say. And I want to share this with you. One of the biggest problems that I find is that I constantly need to create content. Now, I currently have 2 YouTube channels, and that's 3 videos a week that I'm posting plus shorts. Okay. So it's a lot of content. We also have a newsletter that goes out. We have a blog, LinkedIn posts. There's a lot of different content that I need to write throughout the week. And it's really hard to constantly be thinking like, okay, can I use this for content? What should I do? I need an idea for a topic. Like, it's time consuming. So I want to show you what I built. Now, this is how my week looks. I don't know if you can see this clearly, but this is basically a screenshot of my Fathom recordings. So what happens is throughout the week, I have calls with potential clients and I have calls with current clients. Let's say we're working on a setup or an AI agent, something like that. I have all these calls and I'm talking all day long, and it's great content. I was just thinking to myself, like, why aren't I using this for my content? Like, these are great ideas and I should be able to pull this and use this for content. So that's exactly what I did. That was a serious amount of time that I was spending planning content, but now I'm taking something that I'm doing anyway and just turning it into content. So it starts like this. And again, like I said, this is a screenshot of my Fathom where all my calls are recorded. And at the end of the week, it looks like this. I'm actually going to stop sharing and share my actual Monday board because I want to show it to you. What happens is that I have all of these calls, and at the end of the week, I have a scheduled task within Claude. Claude reviews all of my recordings and my calls that I had, and it breaks it down into different content for me. So it gives me ideas for LinkedIn posts. It gives me ideas for YouTube shorts, ideas for YouTube longs, and ideas for YouTube posts. Now, I've trained Claude to be like, okay, this is the kind of information that I want to look for. This is how I want to write it. But essentially, it saves me so much time because it pulls it all together for me. And then it puts it into a Monday board that Claude also created. So let me share with you my board just so you can see it. And even if you're not a Monday user, that's okay because it could be in any tool. It doesn't need to be Monday specific. This is just an example of what I did. So here you can see that I have this board, content ideas from calls, and you can see it's telling me like, here's the format, here's the status, and just here are some ideas I just want to show you as an example. So here it'll say, it's like, again, this higher level of using AI. There's 2 different client conversations that circled around the same track. goes through the details, and this is just an idea. Obviously, we very strongly believe that you can't have everything AI, and there obviously needs to be a human touch and human editing and all of that. So we don't post just this, but this is the start of an idea. Like, we've done the first level because we already have the content, because I'm already talking about it and it's clearly what people are interested in. And then I simply can just take this, edit it, and in this example, use it as a LinkedIn post. And like I said, we have a lot of different type of content that comes out of this workflow. But it's something for me that was like a huge time saver, because I'm already doing this. I'm already saying all these things. Then I don't need to think about the content. Like, in my mind, I think every business is always talking about marketing and they need to work on things like this. So this is like a great workflow that you can use. I want to go back now to talking about the speed to leads, because I think that is only one part of the equation. This is a second example of something that I built that I want to show to you, but the speed to lead is only the first part of closing customers or leads. The second part is following up with your leads. Now, this is an idea that we took from one of our clients that was in the construction industry, and they said, all of our sales reps are terrible except one person. I think her name was Winnie or Wendy. I don't remember her name. So we want to have a sales agent that basically drafts emails in her voice because she has better emails. So basically what I did is I took this idea because I'm like, that's a great idea. It'll work for me also. So I want to show you this second agent that I built that also just helps me save time. So I want to introduce you to Sam. This is Sam. He is my sales agent. And I want to explain a little bit of my process so that way you can understand how much Sam helps me. I'm going to share with you on this slide. I'm going to show you the flow so that way you can see exactly what happens. So in my sales process, I usually have a call with a potential client first. They find our Calendly link somewhere on our different marketing locations and they schedule a call with me. Okay. So what happens is when that call is done, I open Claude Cowork and I'll say, hey, Claude, I just had a meeting with Jim. Let's write a proposal for him. Okay. Claude is connected to Fathom. It automatically pulls the transcript, but it understands what type of proposal should go out. Now, I have 6 different types of proposals that should go out, but I've set up Claude in such a way that it has context. So I don't need to explain this plan versus that plan or whatever it is. It listens to the call and it makes a decision by itself. I always have a step in that I need to approve it. So I look at it. It tells me like, okay, I think you need this. I say, great. And it goes to write my proposal. It understands the call. So it pulls the pain points, the goals, the different priorities for the client, because that's what I want to focus on in my email and in my proposal. Then it drafts a proposal for me in the software where I write proposals. I use a tool called Anchor, highly recommend it. So it drafts a proposal in there for me. Again, I go in and check it to make sure it's good, or I see it in the chat with Claude, but it uses my voice. It knows our guidelines. And I have the proposal there. Then it drafts a first email. So the first email is like, hey, Jim, it was great speaking to you. Here's a link to the proposal. Yes, Claude automatically pulls that link from Anchor for me. And it also summarizes the pain points. I just like to put that in my first email, but it writes it in my voice. Now, I don't let Claude automatically send emails. I wouldn't recommend it, but it creates a draft in my inbox. So once I'm ready to send out the proposal, all I need to do is I need to go to my inbox. I see a draft. It's already written out to the person that it should go. It has a certain title because I need that for my naming convention. And then I can send it. You could see here that this slide is marked in red because it's really critical. Like I said, you do need this human piece. You do need to make sure it's okay. Don't just send out proposals or emails without seeing them. Sometimes I'll tweak it a little bit, but then I send out my proposal. Now, the next thing that it does is it writes all of my follow-up emails. So I have a sequence of 5 different emails that come after I've sent out that first email. So what it does is at the same time, it writes these different emails and it puts them into a playbook. So it essentially creates a document that's called a playbook. It saves it on my computer and then it references it. Okay, so what happens? I have these 5 emails that are written. And every single time I have to follow up with that potential lead, it will go back to the playbook, finds the email that should be sent, and write the email as a draft in my inbox. So then a week later, if I don't hear back from Jim, Claude has automatically created a draft that I've already approved within my inbox. So then I just need to send it out. And I think one of the coolest things here, which is what I started to tell you before, is that two of my emails, one of them looks at my website for case studies, and one of them looks at my YouTube channel. So it'll be something like, oh, this person wants to know about AI agents. Okay, this is a great YouTube video. Let's put it in the body of the email. So it automatically scans my information and puts it in the email, which is, to me, is just amazing. Like, it just saves so much time. Now, let's move on. Step 4 is build. Now, the way that I think you should approach this is that you should build one project at a time, make sure it works, and then expands. I'll tell you that in the beginning, when I build out like a new scheduled task or a new skill or workflow within Claude, the first couple of days, I'm constantly tweaking it until I get it right, because you notice things that come up. And because it's so easy, I just need to say to Claude, like, hey, you did this and I don't like this. Or let's just take the content creator that I showed you before. I could say like, hey, Claude, now we want to start advertising, I don't know, on this website, write posts in this format for this. So I can constantly update my prompts, then I can use them and obviously test it. But what I recommend is start with one workflow, build that out, and then you can expand. And one way to decide like what workflow you should start with, because you probably, when you think about it and actually map out everything, you probably have a lot of workflows that you could do. I would say that I've already built probably like 10 AI agents for myself, different workflows. Some are much larger than others, but I've built a lot of them because I've gone through this process. So what you want to think about are, what are things that you're frequently doing? What's the most manual and what's tied to money? Like, what's going to make the most difference? Like, some things probably not going to make a huge difference, but some things are going to make a very big difference. Like, I feel like before I built Sam, remember Sam's my sales agent, I was spending all day in email because I'm constantly thinking like, okay, now I have to follow up with this guy. Obviously, I check it in my CRM and whatever, but I'm like, okay, now I have to follow up with this guy. Let me write a draft. Let me send it to him. I was constantly doing the same thing all day long. And yes, I use templates for these emails, but I wanted them to be personalized. So now I have like the best of both worlds. It's automated and it's personalized to the potential client. So I would look at where you think you can find the biggest ROI. Honestly, I think a lot of companies have this issue of speed to lead. That's like a huge, huge thing. So I definitely would start there if that's something that you guys are doing. But I would start with something small, test it, and then expand. Now, I hope that you can take this home with you and you can run this yourself. Let's just review the steps. The first is to map it. You need to actually see it. One core process, name every tool that it touches, and actually map it out. The second is to market. Find the actual pain points. Where's the gap? Where are the holes? Where are things constantly be repeated? The third is to match it. Decide how to fix it. There's a lot of different tools that are available. Decide the best way to fix it. And the fourth is to build it. And when you're thinking about what you can build and what's next on your list, start by what's most frequent, manual, and what's tied to money. Build one and then go out and build the other one. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about what I think is easy to do and where I think, it's a little bit harder. I think the mapping, the marking, all of that is just a process. You can do that. Sometimes the places where it gets hard is the building, because you may not be familiar with all of the tools and you may not know what they can do. So sometimes at the building part, that's where people need help. I do want to say like one trick, and I know this sounds like such a basic trick, but everyone kept on repeating it on all these videos that I was watching. And the reason is because I think people don't remember it. Like, if you're doing something in Claude, do you know that you can just ask Claude, like, what are the next steps, or what do I do now? I'll give you an example. I was setting up something for a client and I didn't know I was getting stuck on one step. So I just asked Claude. Like, it sounds so simple, but people forget that you can ask Claude and it can give you the steps. So keep that in mind when you are building these things. And many of times also people just don't have time to build it. And that's okay. That's why companies like One Thing Simpler exist, because we can help take that off your shoulders. Now, I want to share with you 2 other examples just to show you things that we've built that really have made a difference for some of our clients. So one thing, and this is something that I think I see across the board with all of my clients, is something called dashboard hopping. They have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 different tools. They're their project management, their CRM, their financial tool, different marketing platforms that they're using. And they spend 15 to 20, 30 minutes a day just jumping from tool to tool to tool. So what we built is we built an email that our client gets. They get an email that looks like this every single day. It gives them pipeline information, revenue, marketing, conversion rates. This is what they wanted to see. So we built this email around them, but we helped connect all of their tools and set up this workflow. So instead of taking 15 to 30 minutes to look for this information, it now takes them 2 minutes a day. Pretty straightforward, but I think this is something that's like pretty critical to a lot of businesses and they overlook this, but think of the amount of time that you're spending. The other example that I want to introduce you to is I want to introduce you to an AI team that we built out for a client. These are just the first 2 agents that we built for them. One is called Emily and one is called Scott. And basically this company, they work in the medical field. So they do marketing for very large pharmaceutical companies. They didn't really have a very strong sales process. So we helped them build a lot of that out. But one of the things that they needed is they needed an email finder. I know it sounds funny, but they were using a tool that found leads for them, but the email wasn't always part of the leads when they showed up. So what they did is we created Emily, and essentially what Emily does is when she finds a new contact in their CRM, she goes to a third-party tool, it's called Wizza, that they use, and she finds the email address and puts it back in their CRM. So essentially, Emily is finding those missing leads. Then after that, then we introduce Scott. Now what Scott does is he does email sequencing for this client. So this is what I think is really cool. Essentially, they sent out 3 different emails to their potential client, but they want to check, first of all, they have prompts that they want to use. And the next thing is they want to make sure that, or see if there's any relevant news. Like, let's just say they're meeting with a CFO, they're trying to reach out to him. So they want to be like, oh, hey, we saw about your recent acquisition or something related to the CFO. So we built a system that checks the news, certain websites that they're interested in, and checks people's LinkedIn profiles, pulls it into their CRM, and actually writes 3 email sequences for them. It does draft them also, and then they see them, and then they send it out. But we built a whole system that can pull from their title, information in the news, then they have prompts that they can update, and Scott essentially is their email sequencing that writes these sequences. Again, notice, and I think this is really important, and it's something we talk about all the time, like there is human interaction here. They're not just sending out these emails. They're looking at them. They're making sure they make sense. They're following up, checking the text, tweaking the prompts. But most of the heavy lifting is done by AI. And this is where I think it's really, really valuable. So now that you have the method, I just want to review it one more time so that way you can actually use it. Number 1 is map, draw the real flow. Number 2 is mark, circle the gaps and the holes. Number 3 is match. And number 4 is to actually build. Now, I hope that this method is something that you will continue to use and that you can take with you for building out your agents or leveraging AI within your workflows. But if you do need any help, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a 30-minute brainstorming session with you. We just put a link in the chat or the questions, I don't know where. And also you can scan the QR code if you want to book a session with me, and I'm happy to show you where I think you can leverage AI. So feel free to get in touch. I would love to meet with you. And finally, are there any questions that I can answer for anyone before we end for today? Let me just read it for everyone. What is the most manual process in your business today? And approximately how many hours per week does your team spend on it? That's a good question. I would say the most manual process for me was definitely following up on leads and writing all of these emails. It probably took me like 5 hours a week, I would say. So now I've cut that down to about an hour a week, maybe even less. Everyone on my team has different things, but that's definitely a huge piece. And the second question is, if you could automate one business process tomorrow without worrying about cost or technical complexity, what would it be and why? So I've actually done a lot of these processes. I've automated a lot of things in my business. I'll tell you the next few things that I'm planning. Number 1 is I really want to create an agent that can almost be like a CFO for me, just to kind of like have like big picture eyes on the financial aspects of my business and stay on top of it. I think it's really important, and not all businesses have it. Like, we don't have an official CFO. So I think that could be something that I've been thinking about doing. And number two, I don't know how possible this is, but I would love to have an AI agent that can go through all of some of my content and help come up with other ideas in terms of like looking at current videos that I've already done and maybe figuring out other ways to like slice it, or to come up with a different topic and like pull, let's just say, top 5, whatever, and create another video about it. So those are some things that I've been thinking about. But honestly, like I said, I've been tweaking a lot of the agents that I built, I'm constantly tweaking them and they just get better and better. Another thing that I did is I have AI like read all my emails and see what else it can respond to, like simply to just save me time. Okay. And I see one more question. If you had to pick one or two of the biggest problems you've helped solve for construction companies with agents or AI, what are they? So we're actually working on with a really interesting construction company now. They have a really detailed dispatch spreadsheet. They're using an Excel spreadsheet for dispatch. So basically what they do, they work in the construction industry, but they do some kind of, I don't know the exact details, like some kind of inspections of construction, like they're doing things on highways and things like that. So they need to know exactly who's working what day, but then it gets more complicated because what happens if they worked the night before? And what equipment are they using? Like they only have 3 trucks. So how do they decide who's using what truck? And how do they know who's assigned to which job? So we actually built out a custom app for this dispatch. The information actually all lives in Monday, but unfortunately Monday couldn't handle having a really complicated app like this. So we built a custom app for them, and we're still in the testing phases, but I think it's going to be a game changer once they start using it, because literally they say they're like, the people on the field are sitting on their phones, like scrolling through Excel sheets because they need to update it and they can't see anything. And, unfortunately it needs to be really accurate. So I would say that is the one that I'm most excited about. So I will just say thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Again, I'd love to meet with you if you think we can help. And have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.